it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Professor Tessa Kerre. I hope I've pronounced that reasonably well, Tessa. Tessa is a hematologist, working obviously very much from a very medical background, but talking about, so I think she's going to give us a very, very interesting perspective about her work with her patients and how she uses particularly art as a way of improving and working with well-being. Tessa, over to you and welcome to our seminar.
Thank you very much, Diana. First, we'll share my screen. So indeed, I'm from the other side, from the doctor's side, but I'm really thankful that I could speak here today and talk about one of my dreams to bring art at the bedside. So I wrote a little book. It's in Dutch, Kunst op voorschrift, or Art on Prescription, and in that little book I explain my dream more in detail. But today I wanted to share with you some of my reflections on care. And this is the hospital I'm working in. It's the Ghent University Hospital. And I'm working in the left building and on the 9th floor, taking care of patients with hematological cancers. And several years ago, I frequently ran upon this little carts full of books, and they were pushed by those angel-like creatures, mostly with gray hair and a dot. And then a few years ago, I realized that it had been a while since I encountered them on my walks through the hospital. So I inquired, and indeed they told me that they had stopped the collaboration with the Red Cross, who actually was the deliverer of these angel-like creatures with their book cards, because, well, lots of patients had their digital readers they read from. I do not agree that the digital reader is the same as a paper book, but that's another discussion. And well, those books, were they hygienic enough? I don't know. I am not aware of any patient or person who died from a bug coming out from a book, but apparently that was a serious problem. And so they disappeared. And for me, it was a sad illustration of where sometimes our care is evolving towards. And everybody working in healthcare knows these checklists. And I also think that we need a checklist, the quality system, you know, and it helped us to improve our care and the quality of our care. But what I'm a little bit afraid of is that we might forget the most important check in the checklist, and that is taking care of people, you know, the warmness of taking care of people. And I really think that art can play a really important role in that care of people and not of illnesses. So, of course, a lot of my colleagues, you know, the medical people that you were talking about earlier, they are not convinced by beautiful stories. I'm not always convinced that they need charts and graphs. And then I always talk about, for example, this beautiful paper that was published in PNAS, a big journal, in about almost 2 years ago. And actually what they did here, they looked at the pain scales of children after surgery. And they did not give these children any painkillers. But what they did was they did an intervention with or telling a story or playing a riddle with those children. And they looked at oxytocin in the saliva. It's kind of the happiness hormone, you could say. They looked at cortisol in the saliva, so the stress hormone, and they also looked at some pain scales. And as you can see here, after this intervention, they really saw an increase in happiness hormone, a decrease in cortisol, and a decrease in the pain scale. And the difference between, there was a significant better improvement with telling a story than with playing a riddle. So telling stories really help and can even decrease pain. And this brings me to my own project in the Ghent University Hospital. It started at a very rainy evening in the fall of 2019 with a packed auditorium of students who remained incredibly silent while listening to this lady, Jane Davis. And Jane is from Liverpool, and she talked about telling stories and what stories can do to people, and about how literature isn't a luxury, but a life changer. And she talked about her project, Shared Reading. Actually, she gave up being a professor at university to start this shared reading project, The Reader. And what she does is she tells stories to people in vulnerable groups, poor people, people in healthcare institutions, and she was so inspiring. And actually now we have lots of sister organizations around the world. In Belgium, it's called Het Lezerscollectief, and it was one of our partners who brought us to our project in the university. So there's Jane talking about the packed auditorium of students. And there we inspired those students to join a research project where we brought together 20 students of our faculty of medicine and health sciences and 20 patients who were treated for cancer at our hospital for acute leukemia or for a solid tumor. As you can see here, it's not only my project, I coordinated the project, but it's a collaboration of a lot of people in the hospital, also some master students in medicine who did their master thesis on this subject. And these are some of the students who, the wonderful people who did collaborate with us in the research project. And once in a while, we came together frequently, together with a group of students. They talked about their experiences. And at one of those nights, I got an email afterwards from Dirk Terin from the Lezerscollectief. And he asked me, did you also think about that beautiful movie, Dead Poets Society, when we were sitting together at the attic of the Poetry Centrum in Ghent, which is a beautiful place? And I said, yes, indeed, I did. Because it was such inspiring nights we spent together talking to these young people who, read together with patients. And this is, I'm sorry because it's in Dutch, but time is not enough to really go into detail. But this is some of the results we got from studying both the impact this reading together had with the students and the patients. And it's not just reading together, it's reading together, but also pausing and reflecting on the text that you read together. And students told us that this really changed their lives and would impact their professional life, the way they were able to connect with the patients in an incredible way. After a few sessions through the texts, they connected with these patients. And I was looking at it and I was like, wow, this is incredible. And then also the patients, for some of the patients, it was just, passing the time. And that's okay. But for some other patients, it really could, through the text, share some memories, brought things back. I had a patient who was at the end of her life, and she said, we were reading together a romantic story, and it brought back the time that I met my husband. And it's so incredible that at the last weeks of my life, I could bring back these beautiful memories. So I couldn't keep on talking for it, but Diana won't allow me, of course. So just the final slides are my dream, bringing art to the bedside, not only reading, but more of every kind of art. I would like to create a room service where patients can really, decide what kind of art you can bring at the bedside, pass time, but also really reflect and come to a deeper level of well-being. So I got a fund at the Ghent University Hospital, and our new Princess Delphine von Saxen-Coburg, really did not have to think a lot about enjoying this or accepting this offer, and she became the voice and the connected to this fund. And then just to end, we have the reading mailbox. This is Astrid, one of the students who was part of the research project, and she created a small mailbox. The top is a kind of a diorama that patients can look through, and then you have a small piece you can put your hand in. And as you can see at the right photo, there's a lot of nice little poems or short stories that patients can take out and read alone or together with one of their loved ones. And then we have also 3 volunteers now who can be booked to read together with cancer patients in the hospital every week, 2 days a week. So this was my brief talk. I hope I didn't go a lot out of time. And if there are questions at the end, I'm more than happy to answer them. Thank you very much.
Tessa, that was absolutely wonderful. Gosh, again, so many things that jumped out, and you kept it beautifully to time. So well done. Please do put questions and comments into chat. We have a minute, so I'm going to steal a minute just to say that I think literature is not a luxury but a life changer is one of the most powerful things I think I've ever heard anybody say. So thank you so much for sharing that. But how can you talked about, you said, I'm from the other side. I'm from the other side. It's like, I really hope you don't feel like that. But how can we bridge that gap? What can we do from our side, as it were? How can we, I mean, you've already talked about, the ways that you're working, but in a nutshell, as we would say in English, in a short sentence, what's the most important thing that we could do?
Yeah, I think bringing us together. I think that's the most important thing. And sometimes I feel like a lone ranger, and I get a lot of reactions from people in the field, people who want to start reading for patients, who have wonderful projects they want to do in a hospital. That's not a problem. I will be able to fill that room service platform, no problem. But a problem will define ambassadors within the hospital to convince patients that it is really important. And because once they are convinced, once they get to the platform, they get to the pieces of art, most people are really convinced. But that's the hardest part. And I think it's not easy. I've been thinking a lot about it. And I think, convincing them with research is what I do, because that's what they want to see, and that's what I'm doing. I'm really, welcoming every suggestion you guys have to convince my own colleagues of the importance, because it is really important. Sometimes that's not true, of course, but sometimes I say that, doing this and contacting and making contact with the person, not the disease, is sometimes more important than the pills or the chemo we give. And I really think that.
Oh, thank you. What a wonderful answer. And I think that is an open invitation and a call to action for all of us. Let us be that ambassador, and let's really have those conversations. Tessa, thank you. Please don't go away. I'm sure there will be some questions. There's lovely comments coming through on the chat. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.